Right, my friends, let's go with take two and hope that this one works. So, again, apologies, no idea what happened there, but we hope that this should be a little bit smoother. So, fingers crossed, do let me know if things go a little bit downhill on your end. Hopefully, this should be good to go. And as I was trying to mention when we did our intro a moment ago, we will be discussing Darwin Nunez' impending move to Al Hilal. We'll talk about the situation with Alexander Isak and why that really hasn't changed. Newcastle missing out on Sesko, of course, has set us back. We'll discuss the Bradley Barcola stuff. We'll go through Harvey Elliott and his proposed move to RB Leipzig, and we'll ask what that means for, well, the transfer window. So yeah, hopefully we're good to go. I do realise we missed a couple of super chats actually, so I will adhere to try and get through those in a minute. Mark kindly sent them on to me, but I'm just fixing a couple of quick things here on the back end. And then, fingers crossed, all going well, we should be good to go. Right, so Mark did send something through to me a minute ago that I missed. So he said, membership post from Ryan said, hello all you absolute legends. And then Jumpman said, I don't see the point in Isak staying at Newcastle and then saying we want to choose 80 million for Barcola or 90 million for Rodrigo. I don't understand the logic of Barcola at all, mate, to be honest with you. I don't want them near Liverpool Football Club, but we'll go through that over the next while. Right, so yes, apologies again for earlier on. We were messing around with our camera settings earlier, and I think things must have messed up a little bit. Something was not working right, but fingers crossed so far. So good, we're still live. So yeah, thank you guys for coming in. No sign of long sleeves in the shops just yet, said Pat Moynihan. Do you know what? Some of the shops, and I don't know if it's the same in the UK, but some of the shops are only selling from the 15th of August for some of the Liverpool shirts. My missus went down to try and grab one in the shop and couldn't get it, so they couldn't sell them until the 15th. So, Chad, how are we, dude? Take two. And again, Chad, I apologise on the first one. YouTube just didn't want me streaming at that point, dude. So, said, like every Newcastle attempt to bring in a striker this summer, hope all is well with you and the family. All good, bro, all good. It was it was a busy day today. We were out and about sorting some boring business stuff, unfortunately, but back home just in time for the stream. Connor, being the legend that he is still halfway back to his house, had to pull over to help me set up the stream, so I'm very appreciative for his efforts as well. So, where do we want to start off, ladies and gents? Because there is a load to go through tonight. I'm sure you're probably aware of the very latest, but just in case you aren't, let's start with Darwin, because that feels like a good place to start tonight. Now, I know a lot of people are probably expecting me to come on and be overly happy about Darwin moving on. Truth is, I never like to see a player not working out, and I take no joy in Darwin moving on. I just genuinely do feel it's the best thing for everybody. You know, it's a World Cup year coming up for him. He'll get to go and play football. Liverpool will get to bring in a transfer fee, and you would hope another forward as well. So, like I said, I take absolutely no pleasure in this Darwin situation not working out. We all wanted him to be a success, but truly, this does feel like the best way to resolve it. So, Darwin Nunez to Al Hilal, here we go, said Fabrizio Romano. Verbal agreement being completed between all parties, €53 million plus add-ons to Liverpool as revealed today, he said, 3-year deal. Nunez said yes, and Inzaghi only wanted him. On top of that, we had Florian Plettenberg confirming pretty much the same thing as well. Darwin Nunez to Al Hilal, done deal. Full agreement has been reached with Liverpool. Nunez has also given the green light. Contract until 2028. Medical will follow once the paperwork is completed. Top salary. An important sale for Liverpool, who are still working on a move for Alexander Isak and want to sign a top winger. Now that part has really interested me, folks. What are we saying? Top winger? Really? I mean, I'd love it. You know, we spoke the other day. The priority is centre-back. I think we can all agree on that, but I'm not going to lie. The idea of Isak and potentially a wide player as well and a centre-back, that would be phenomenal. And look, I want to say this really clearly. I don't want Bradley Barcola at Liverpool. Whatever else happens, I want to just put my cards on the table early doors. I don't want him at Liverpool. I think he misses too many chances. Yes, he has a good scoring rate over in Paris, but ultimately, when I watch him, I'm left feeling frustrated, and I don't, one, believe that PSG are going to want to sell, and two, I don't want him coming to Liverpool because I don't think it'd be a good fit. That's my honest assessment of it. So I'm also a little bit dubious about those links, to be honest. A lot of it coming from the French side. I don't know if maybe this is him looking for a better deal at PSG or something, but I don't see it happening. I really don't. And also, I don't think there'd be value in that deal, which sounds a bit ironic when we're in a summer where value seems to have gone out the window. So let me know what you guys think. I'm going to ask you for the first poll of the night. Do you want Barcola? So let's ask that one. Do you want Barcola? How many L's is in Barcola? Is it one or two? Let's check in. Just the one, Craig. Just the one. Do you want Barcola? 1 second. As a wide signing. So, learn how to write, Craig, for God's sake. Come on. Come on, Craig. You can get this. You can do it. Do you want Barcola as a wide signing? Yes or no? For me, look, it would be a definitive no, but of course, I do want to know what you guys think, so let me know in that poll, and we'll get back to it. Corbin, how are we, dude? Lovely to see you in as well, bro. Appreciate you. Said, I feel that Barcola has been put in to the media to try to speed up the Isak deal. I don't believe there are legs to it. It's a power play. So, I have to say, mate, as soon as I seen it, and it isn't the first time we've been linked with Barcola. We've been linked to him earlier on in the window. But I have to say, dude, my mind went exactly where yours went. When I seen that today, I thought, I'm not having it. I'm not believing that. It definitely does feel like a reminder that we have options. That's the way I see this as well. So I haven't had time yet to talk to some of the English side of this to see what the journalists and a few others are thinking, but definitely was my initial instinct as well. Ryan O'Driscoll, how are we, my man? I honestly don't get some pundits. Cara today saying we don't need Isak, that Hugo would be upset. Darwin gone. Didn't think the so-called expert realised we only have one striker. So, I was just reading the Cara comments, Ryan, before I went live, and I don't get them either. Now, look, we're all entitled to an opinion. I understand where Jamie Carragher's coming from, talking about not wanting Liverpool to spend 150 million, but I think him saying that's Mbappe money is very wrong as well, because we all know if Mbappe actually went at market value at the minute, you're probably talking 300-400 million. But I do understand what he's talking about 150 million. It is a lot of money, but he's the one the manager wants. And yes, Ekatike was brought in, but much like you've said, Ryan, we've lost 3 forwards maybe in this window, 4 forwards. So we definitely need the bodies. And why not get the best that we can get? Because what I didn't hear from Carragher today was alternatives. Viable alternatives that Liverpool could bring in. So I respectfully disagree with Carragher on this one. I'd be definitely on your side of it, Ryan, and thinking we need the forwards. I'm going to miss Nunez. He has saved us so much. Has he? I don't remember many of those saves, to be honest. I remember the Newcastle game, but ultimately, like I said, it is one of those deals that I think it's just the right time for everybody to move on. Our other Ryan, how are we, sir? Said, evening, Craig. Awesome community. I've been chill now, but with 4 days till the community shield and it's radio silence about centre-backs, the worry is creeping in now as we're very light at the back. Well, let's have a look at what's been written today around the centre-back situation, because I don't think you're on your own, my good friend, to feel that little bit of anxiety around the centre-back situation. There's been some stuff written about it today. I'm just trying to find the exact links. Where's the story from? Where is he? Where's Mr. Paul Joyce? Where are you, Paul? So many stories today. I'm just playing catch-up, so bear with me. Yeah, so this one. Paul Joyce said, Mark Gay has entered the final year of his contract at Crystal Palace, and Liverpool may follow up their interest depending on the asking price. There is strong interest in Parma's 18-year-old centre-back Giovanni Leone, who is also wanted by Inter Milan. Isak, of course, has been the saga of the summer, and the next instalment of that story cannot be too far away. But to me, and I don't know how you guys feel about this, but if I'm looking at Leone, there's a big difference between bringing in 18-year-old Leone and 23, 24-year-old Mark Gay, who's far more experienced. I would say one of those two could come in and replace Canade if he got injured tomorrow. The other one, I'm not so sure about that just yet. So for me, I would prefer us to go down the Mark Gay route. But look, ultimately, as I've always said, it's Arne's summer. It's his decision. I just don't think an 18-year-old is going to be ready yet. to come in. 18 seems just that little bit too young to be ready to come in and play week in and week out if needs be. Again, don't know how you guys feel about that one. Sam said, was in Liverpool Monday. They had shirts in stock but got back. My delivery was delayed till the 15th due to high demand. Maybe same for retailers. No, they're just not allowed to sell them, Sam. Sabrina was speaking to one of the staff members she knows in Sports Direct, and said they're not allowed to put them out until the 15th. Now, I think you can order them online, right? Because Connor ordered his shirt from Lifestyle Sports here in Ireland online and got it delivered, but physically in the shop anyway, Sports Direct over here said they couldn't put them on the shelf till the 15th. Philip said, no way Gay comes in if Canada is staying. So, let me push back on you, Philip, if I might, a little bit. I totally get where you're coming from, but I still think it's very logical to go and bring in Mark Gay, because I guess your argument is going to be, and it's a fair one, can you give him the game time? I say yes, you could, between Virgil van Dijk, Ibrahim Kanate and Mark Gay. One of them's going to pick up a knock, and more importantly, they're going to have to be rotated throughout the season. And I think you could play any combination of 2 of 3 of those and have Joe Gomez as your backup. So I think you can still give him those guarantees, Philip, that he's going to get enough game time, which of course he's going to be right to ask about. But I really think between the sheer volume of games and wanting to keep players at the pinnacle, peak fitness, maybe trying to keep Virgil to 1 game a week as an example when things are getting busy as he's getting older, I think it would be very good to have Mark Gay in. I certainly feel far more comfortable bringing in a Mark Gay than I would about an 18-year-old centre-back who couldn't be ready if Canada had an injury next week. Logical for us, Craig, but not for Gay in a World Cup year. But it is. I've just explained it, Philip. I think it's logical anyway, sorry. He's going to get Champions League football. So even if you're looking at the standard of football he'd play at Liverpool versus the standard of football at Crystal Palace, you would say it's going to be at a higher level because he's got Champions League football to come into. Now, of course, there will be European football with Crystal Palace, but I still think you can give him 35, 40 games a year, mate. That's just my opinion on it. But look, like we said, we're just a couple of fans, Philip, having a chat, and it'll come down to what Arna wants to do. Prashir said, not convinced by Georgie Mamardashvili. Get that. I don't think we've seen a big enough sample size of Georgie with a good defence in front of him or a solid defence in front of him yet. So it's been quite difficult to get a read. Also, it's pre-season, but I do understand where you're coming from. There was always going to be some questions about Georgie Mamardashvili in certain aspects, like distribution, as an example. John, Barcola is a baller. He'll prove you wrong. I don't think he'll come either way, mate. So, if he comes in, he'll get my support. I can promise you that. I just don't want Bradley Barcola. But if he becomes a Liverpool player, I will be right behind him and wanting him to succeed. I just feel very dubious on a couple of reasons. One, I don't know if PSG are going to sell. And 2, I don't think there's value in it for us. He's a player. If he shaved his head, I might consider it. But I don't know, man. Just when I watch him, I find him frustrating to watch. But obviously, there's a lot of positive attributes in him, and if you look at it, these goals and assist return and stuff is quite high. I just, I don't know. There's just something that never really appealed to me about Bradley Barcola. But like I said, let's see what the chat feel. So we asked, do you want Barcola as a wide signing? We've had over 2,000 votes so far. We'll let it go a bit longer. So far, there's slightly more people saying no than yes. Right, let's keep going. How are we? Nevlin, dude, how are we? Should we not be in for Baleba? Can't go to the Manx. Now, honestly, I don't think there's a world Manchester United can get that deal done. I don't. Look, Manchester United barely got around PSR previously. Now they're after going out and dropping Sesko money when they get him, and Mbeumo money, Cunha money. They'll be bringing in a goalkeeper. I don't think that they're going to be able to put together an offer of probably 100 million or 80 million. I just can't see them doing it, Neville, I can't. I just can't, yeah. Mate, for many reasons, I just can't see that deal happening. And one of them being Brighton's very difficult stance on negotiations. Great player, though. But, we've spoken about Carlos Baleba here many times. He's somebody that Liverpool have looked at, and rightly so. Nedge, Urban Sports, how are we, my friend? Said, Craig, I think we've sold enough players now. We need to recruit. I think we've recouped nearly as much as we've spent. So, the how do I say this? It was always going to come down to how we reflected on this at the end of the window. We knew we were going top heavy first and spending money. There was always going to come a time where recouping money was the next logical step. And to be fair, I mentioned players that I thought were going to move this summer, and nobody outside of those players looks like they're going to move this summer. So people didn't want to hear me when I said it, but I went into the summer saying Tyler Morton will go, Harvey Elliott will probably go, Darwin will go, Diaz will probably go, Chiesa will go. But you are right. It's all well and good bringing in some money for these guys, but we also have to make sure that we have numbers. And one more forward in feels like, 2 would be fine. Centre back is an area for concern right now, and understandably. But none of the sales are ones that we weren't expecting to make. So let's wait and see. Like, the net spendometer right now, as we sit here this second, sits at 150 million. Now, of course, Harvey Elliott's fee will bring that down a little bit more. Darwin Nunez will bring it down even further. So you're probably looking somewhere around 40, 50 million net spend with those 2 sales. But if we then go and sign Isak for, let's say, 130, that's going to creep up again. Bring in a centre-back, it'll go up again. So I think by the end of the window, if we get everybody we need in, and we've a net spend of about 200 million, I think that's good business. But I totally appreciate where you're coming from. I really, really do. I'm not wanting to be pushing back on anybody who's worrying about numbers at this point. But I don't feel we'll have done all this to undermine ourselves at the end of the window. So I'm trying to be optimistic on this one, because I've moaned about transfers for long enough, but I respect where you're coming from. Let's primarily focus on our defence. If Isak happens, okay, but more importantly is the centre-back. Agreed, but I really don't think, Lolly, Isak's distracting from the centre-back. But I still can't give you a reason, bro, as to why we're not going for a centre-back, because it's starting to not concern me, but I'm every bit as anxious to find out what's happening there as your good self and everybody else. I am. I certainly don't feel comfortable with the options we have at the minute, not by a long way. I think when we ask people how many they think we need, I could understand the answer of 2 as well, because we never really replaced Matip. Right, so we're nearly at 2,500 votes on the Bradley Barcola question, but we'll leave it run a bit longer because I have a couple more comments to get through. If I could ask you a small little favour, ladies and gentlemen, if you can, do hit that like button for me. Sorry about the earlier attempt at the stream, but I appreciate you all being patient and coming back in. I really do. Adzer, well, Craig, how's the form? Really good. Yeah, mate, I'm really happy. Obviously, other half of the Liverpool order arrived today, so got to get some new Liverpool gear. So yeah, good, my man, good. Looking forward to the Community Shield at the weekend, and then of course next Friday we kick off against Bournemouth. Do you think there's any truth in the Collins rumours? No. So, do I think we've kept an eye on Nathan Collins? Absolutely. Do I think we're all of a sudden now going back? No, I think it's an old link that was brought back up again, and it doesn't make sense considering he was just made Brentford captain, and they're already after getting fleeced for players this summer. So, quality of the player, no problem, but very dubious about the timing of it, yes. Am I still 90% on Isak? 100%. I'm 100% 90%. Nothing has changed on the Isak front. The only problem is the same one. Newcastle need to get a player. But if anything, and I'll move on to speak about Isak in a moment, that situation's becoming more and more clear, if anything. I know it sounds ironic considering Newcastle have lost out on Sesko, but it feels like he's going to leave, and everybody I've spoken to, whether it's fans, whether it's media, whether it's people inside the game, everybody only sees it ending with Isak leaving. But of course, Newcastle have to get a player in. If we should get a winger, said Soren, and by the way, Soren, lovely to see you. A very long time viewer, appreciate you. Said, I feel it should be a right winger to help Mo and Elliott use it, but seems to be going Leipzig as Rio has our second left winger. Can't wait to see Isak come through the door. So, Soren, at this point, and I'd love to know what the good folks in the chat think, but at this point, I don't want Ben Doak to go anywhere at this point. You know, I want Ben Doak being kept around as an option right now. You know, if we're looking at the numbers game, Chiesa probably going to move on. Salah doesn't really have a competitor on that right. Ben Doak is still our player at the minute. Looked sharp in the game against Athletic Club Bilbao. Why not keep Ben Doak around for the season and give him options on the right? Yeah, for me, that would be the logical thing now. It's not like we need the money. So I would say keep Ben Doak around, lads. That would be my shout. Dino. Barcola gives off El Hadj Diouf vibes. Not keen. So, look, I'm not speaking to Bradley Barcola's personality when I speak. I don't know Bradley Barcola, but whenever I watch him, I can't help but feel frustrated with some of the chances that he misses. I feel like it would be bringing in a wide Darwin Nunez. No doubt there's talent, pace, skill, trickery, ability, but there's frustrations there as well. And for me, it'd just be a no. But look, if Arna wants him, I'll get right behind him if we sign him. Philip said, Doak will go. Club believe he has a cocky attitude. Wait and see. We're feeling a bit angry today, Philip, my man. You know, I feel like you're not being aggressive. That's not the right tone, but, you know, relax. And for what it's worth, I've heard Sale as well in the past, but never heard anything about the attitude now, to be honest. But did always hear that a Sale was on the cards. Where are we? This one, Alfie. What's your percentage on Isak now? Look, I'm going to just try to simplify the answer as best as I can. If Newcastle get any replacement, whether that's Gonzalo Ramos, whether that's Jackson, then I am at 99%. That is the only thing stopping this deal, is Newcastle being able to get a forward in. If they don't get a forward in, then the deal won't happen, because Newcastle can't go into a season without a striker, even an unhappy one. So that's all that this needs. Soon as they get a striker, he's moving. And let's talk about him, actually, because there's a few bits and pieces today. So David Ornstein said this: I don't want to put firm judgment on how this will play out, but as things stand, I don't think Sesko not happening suddenly collapses Isak's departure. I think by the time the window shuts on September the 1st, I think there is a very good chance Isak will have departed and his preference is to join Liverpool. On top of that, we have Ben Jacobs saying those close to Alexander Isak say that he would only consider improved terms if he was allowed to leave in 12 months and if Liverpool first made it clear the deal was not feasible. But he hasn't heard that from Liverpool yet. Then we had Sky Sports Keith Downey saying Eddie Howe has set to hold talks with Isak, who was agitating for a move away from the club and failed to travel on the pre-season tour. Everything's still pointing at him wanting the move. So once Newcastle get a forward in, I think we'll get our man. That's honestly what this will boil down to. No forward for Newcastle, no Isak for us. Forward for Newcastle, Isak for us. That's the simplest way I can say it. Right, let's keep going. Lots more comments to get through. By the way, every time I read out your name, The Real Johnny Sins, on a shorter rat, and people think I'm getting done. They don't realise that I actually get the username and all. They think that you're just doing me all the time, ironically, with your profession and all. Barcola, incredibly wasteful, needs 5 chances to score 1. That's my take on him as well. Whenever I watch him, that's kind of where my head's at. Right, we've done the 3,000 votes. So we asked, do you want Barcola as a wide signing? 54% of you guys said no interest in Bradley Barcola. Let's run through the news really quickly and then we'll get to some more of the comments. So let's talk about Harvey Elliott for a second. This piece here from Bill said Jurgen Klopp pursuing Liverpool transfer. So they say that Kloppo is a huge admirer of Elliott and wants to bring him to Leipzig. We also know that he'd be well coached over there and get opportunities to play. But will he make the move? I'm not sure. My favourite piece of the day actually came from Melissa Reddy. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to read what Melissa's written, but I'll read it out to you now. And to me, as always, because Melissa's a very good journalist, I think she summarised the situation very well. So she said, the frustration for Alexander Isak and his camp is they feel very clearly and respectfully they feel that they very clearly and respectfully inform Newcastle of the forward's desire to explore a fresh challenge well ahead of this summer. In doing so, it afforded Newcastle the chance to attack the market on the front foot and secure a quality reinforcement long before it got to this messy point. It's not Isak's fault Newcastle have had a nightmare, missing out on so many of their top targets. If anything, it probably hardens the belief that their approach and ambition doesn't align with his. There is no solid recruitment foundation at Newcastle. She went on to say, I feel sorry for Eddie Howe, the players and the supporters. Newcastle are in the Champions League for the second time in 3 years and secured their first domestic trophy in 70 years. They are a structural mess off the pitch. Many at the club point to the power struggles that ousted Amanda Staveley as the root of several issues, especially the lack of communication and human touch with the exit of the latter, Amanda Staveley. Given how this window has gone, can Newcastle actually land a replacement for Isak? If they force him to stay, can they get the maximum out of him in the absence of that human touch? If they sell him, can they be trusted to reinvest a British record wisely? So, one thing that Melissa, Craig Hope, and many other esteemed good journalists have written about this summer is the lack of the vision at Newcastle, the lack of the execution behind the scenes, the lack of somebody actually running the club properly. Eddie Howe has been thrown to the wolves, in my opinion, and has been left too much to do for one man. And like Melissa said, Isak's camp told Newcastle a long time before this window what they wanted to happen, that they didn't want to stay, they want to move on, they felt they've been lied to. And it comes back to what I believe Craig Hope said, that inside football, the Newcastle project isn't what it seemed from the outside when you're on the inside, that it's all hollow, basically. And this comes back to, I guess, the type of ownership group that came in. So I've had my arguments about FSG and I've moaned about them, but they have a history of running clubs and franchises and, big sporting institutions. Newcastle seem like it's kind of all over the place. So it's very clear this situation has been made clear to Newcastle by Isak's camp for a long, long, long time. So this isn't just Liverpool coming in trying to destabilise him. He was wanting out before Liverpool even declared their hand this summer. This one. Isak deal too long, can start season 1 striker. So there's nothing Liverpool can do to make it go any quicker. And of course we can start the season with 1 striker. Why couldn't we? If it's a case of 2 weeks between the season starting and the window shutting, absolutely we can start the season with 1 striker. We can't end the transfer window with 1 striker, my friend. I agree with you on that one. But we can certainly start the season with 1 striker. Baleba versus Gravenberch. Well, Baleba has a long way to go to get to the level that Gravenberch plays at as well. Champions League level. But he's a really good player. And I just don't believe he'll end up at United. I don't think they'll have the money. What are your current numbers in terms of squad players, foreign and homegrown? How much space do we have for players coming in? Love the show. Off the top of my head, I think there's 2. Diaz moving on, Darwin moving on, and Chiesa moving on will, I think, leave us with 2 spaces. Elliott obviously would come in on homegrown, so it wouldn't really make a difference. So we still have the ability, but it would certainly help us a bit bringing in a homegrown centre-back, the likes of Mark A. So we have the ability to do either at the minute, but you do have to obviously keep an eye on those because we are getting very close to a 1-out, 1-in situation with overseas players before we start moving on, the likes of Darwin. Jason Curry said, "I'm sorry, Craig. I'm over Newcastle. It's not our fault they can't do business." I get that, but the way I think of it, Jason, and I don't disagree with what you said. It isn't Liverpool's fault Newcastle can't do business, but we're losing sight of what Arna wants, and that's what I keep coming back to. Like, I'd be a liar, mate, if I said to you there haven't been times I've been frustrated over the whole saga and how bad Newcastle are. But I don't know at what point Liverpool want to switch up and move to another target, because clearly there's a belief at Liverpool at this moment in time that we can still get Isak. Now, granted, it hasn't maybe gone as quickly and as smoothly as the rest of our deals this summer. So I think if it ends up with us getting the player he wants, happy days. But again, I understand the frustration about how long it's taken, especially when it's not really in our hands to figure it out. But there will have to come a time where, and to be fair, Paul Joyce said that today. Let me read through what he said. Not that one. Not that one. Not that one. Where was it? Where's the one I was looking for? Second. Sorry, I'm going back through all my notes trying to find it. I basically said that there will come a time where Liverpool have to draw a line in the sand and move. So Lee Ryder said, Liverpool have received plenty of encouragement to submit a new bid for Isak. The money is all well and good, but Newcastle have struggled to get deals done. So it even seems like Newcastle are, basically saying, yeah, if we get a player, come in and bid and you can have him. But as of right now, of course, nothing's happening in that regard. Where's this other one? What's this one? Okay. This one from Theo Squire said Leipzig are in talks with Harvey Elliott over potential transfer. They want to sign him as a replacement for Xavi Simons. Leipzig value Simons at €70 million. Such a value will not be lost on Liverpool when it comes to potential negotiations over Elliott. The Reds know the value of Elliott, and with the club being known to be data-driven and following market trends, will take the fees of players comparable and less pedigree into consideration. Where's the one I'm looking for? There's one particular story I'm looking for today, and I just can't seem to find it. Where are we? Yeah, I can't find the one I'm looking for at this moment. Sorry. So, Craig Hope said Newcastle had to pursue Sesko, even though the feeling was he wanted United, but they were given encouragement to go after him. So Newcastle have earmarked Chelsea striker Nicholas Jackson as a contingency plan for missing out on Benjamin Sesko. Then we had DiMarzio saying Darwin reaches agreement with Al Hilal. Just trying to find. Lee Ryder said Newcastle to make Isak decision today and whether he rejoins the group. See, this I want to call out, by the way, right? I want to call this out. So listen to what I'm reading out, and then I'll tell you what I'm about to moan about. Newcastle have to make a decision on Isak, whether he rejoins the group and faces Espanyol or Atletico Madrid. How can they play an injured player? So, he has a thigh injury, we're led to believe, right? So how could they include him to face Espanyol or Atletico Madrid if he's not fit? Are we saying that they've been lying all along? Like we know they've been full of shit all along? Newcastle are aware of Sesko's admiration, but wanted to stay in the race as long as they could. More striker targets will be included. Chelsea striker Nicholas Jackson has emerged as a serious option for Newcastle as they face defeat in the race for Benjamin Sesko, writes Mike McGrath. Charlie Bennett said Alexander Isak did not attend Benton to train with his Newcastle teammates this morning. He is expected to arrive later today, but no confirmation as to the reason why. Then we had Keith Downey of Sky saying Isak will train and receive treatment away from the main group. As per Jordan Cronin, Isak didn't train with the squad on their first day back today. Exclusive detail can reveal that the striker has been told to report on his own to the training ground after the rest of the players and their families have left. Eddie Howe has arranged a family day gathering for players, partners and children this lunchtime. But no Isak there. Robert Thank you, my man. Appreciate you, Robert. LFC Robbo said, is PSG still the reason for inflated prices? Neymar. I don't know. I think football's just gone mad, mate. So I don't really blame any one particular club at this point for football transfer prices, because even bog standard players now seem to be going for 50 million quid. Football is just losing its mind and losing the run of itself with money. Gardening for beginners. Craig, if Richard Hughes and Eddie Howe are good friends, they could be sorting this out behind the scenes without making it public. Agreed. But ultimately, what we've heard from journalists today is Liverpool are being encouraged to come back for Isak. So Newcastle are knowing they're going to sell. But like, put yourself as a Newcastle fan right now. Would you be happy if your club sold Isak and didn't get somebody in? Or hadn't got somebody lined up? You'd lose your mind, and rightly so. So it's a very difficult sale to the Newcastle fan base unless there's a striker brought in. But again, that's where it's out of our hands a little bit. The way Newcastle are treating Isak isn't right, is it? Look, Newcastle have to look after their own interests. I've no problem saying that. And football clubs can never be seen to be belittled by a player. I hate when these things get toxic, and I've said it many times. But they have to look strong, even though they aren't, and the whole situation's a shit show. But I don't think anything has happened that I haven't expected to happen yet. Isak to draw the line in the sand and make it clear he wants out. Newcastle to try to save face with their fans and look like they're doing everything that they can and they're not caving in. But this is unfortunately one of these football transfers where a player probably has to go a little bit snide to get the move. And yeah, it's unfortunate. I wouldn't like it if it was a player looking to leave us. I wouldn't. I've said this many times, but at the end of it, for me, what matters is, come September the 1st, where is he playing football? Is he playing football for Liverpool Football Club, or is he playing for Newcastle? And if he's playing for Liverpool, then it will have all been worthwhile in my mind. Which is a bit hypocritical, I know. But I am a hypocrite because I'm a football fan. Ryan said, I think if we sign Nathan Collins, then Kelleher puts in an instant transfer request. The sad part is I quite like Brentford, but got a sinking feeling they're getting relegated. There's a lot of change at Brentford. You know, Keith Andrews going in after Thomas Frank, them losing Mbomo, maybe Visa. It's not Norgard leaving as well, of course. A new goalkeeper coming in. I do have a little bit of sympathy for Queevy, and I wonder if he had any wind of what was potentially happening there. Any news on left back sales? Robert, great question. No. And I'm very surprised, mate, because, you know, we have 3 and I didn't expect that we'd start the season with the 3 of them. So at this moment in time, I couldn't say to you what happens at left back, whether it's Robbo, whether it's Costas, or whether they both stay. I don't know, mate. Right, let's keep going anyway. Where was I? Soul Killer. Congrats on 340k subs. Keep up the good work. Thank you, bro. But wouldn't be here without you guys. You know, whatever numbers we get to, it's only because of you guys. So, you know, always very grateful for your support. You'll have a walk alone 20. I absolutely agree with this, sir. You've said there's a reason Paris Saint-Germain went for Kavisha Kvaratskhelia when Barcola was scoring goals. Mate, I'm on your side on that one. Johnny Layton said we need 2 forwards to replace the ones left, seeing what happens when VVD and Connor are injured. So it's a difficult situation looking at the numbers in the forward line. Darwin out, let's say Ekatike in. So I can even look at, let's say, Lucho leaving and allow young Rio to take that spot in the squad. But you still have that Chiesa space and the Diogo Jota space that we need at least 1, maybe 2 in. So it feels weird at the minute because we're basically intentionally selling off the front line. Like, Diogo was obviously a tragedy, but apart from that, we're basically selling off the front line outside of Mohamed Salah and Cody Gakpo. And so far, yes, Rio progressing through to be a first teamer. That's okay, self-explanatory. Brought in Ugo Ekitike, but we still numerically need 2, probably. Harry said, "Hey Craig, hope you're okay. Sorry to hijack the conversation. What's your honest thoughts on Baleba? Personally, I think he's a really good player. I think he's a brilliant player. One we've spoken about on the channel quite a bit over the years, right from when he came in from France to Brighton. I just don't see a world where United get that deal done. I don't think they have the money to make it happen. And I don't think you're going to have a very willing seller at this moment in Brighton either. But he's a really good player and a very, very high ceiling." Clint said, "Don't need Barcola. We have Rio." I'm with you, bro. I'm with you. I don't want Barcola. Rodrigo, I was all in. Rodrigo and Isak would have been, oh my God. But something in the back of my mind I still think Fofana could happen. Yeah, I just think Fofana could happen. I don't know why. Call me deluded, but I still have a feeling that one could happen. Sarath Kumar, how are you, my friend? Said, "Do you think Chiesa is leaving?" Yes, but I think it's going to come down to Atalanta or an Italian club freeing up some money. It feels like Liverpool are willing to unload Chiesa either on a loan with an obligation or for a fee at around €10 million at this point. I think the most clarity we got on it was when he was on the preseason tour. I know they said he was getting some treatment, but I never bought that for a second. It was what Romano said. He was just trying to find a sale. And so far, no takers, which makes the reason we bought him even more confusing. Drake said, "Rio got to be incredible, but to depend on a 16-year-old backup left winger is nuts." Agree, Drake, agree with what you said, but he isn't the only option we have for the left. So Wirtz can play off the left. Gakpo, as you've mentioned, can play off the left. Rio can play off the left. Ekitike can play off the left if we bring in another striker. So I think the signing of the next forward will maybe tie together some of these uncertainties a little bit and give us a bit more clarity. This one. I think Isak being banned from the Family Fun Day has pushed Isak even further away from Newcastle. They're digging their own graves. Look, it's not gonna win him round, is it, Ryan? To say, but Eddie Howe also has to be seen to be standing firm on this and not looking weak. It is a mess and it's a shit show. I don't have any other word for it behind the scenes at Newcastle. It's a shit show. And they've handled it from a PR perspective horrendously from day one, with the mixed messaging about why he wasn't in the game against Celtic at the time. His head wasn't right, but they put out he had a thigh injury. Then he was off training over in Sociedad because he didn't want to go on the pre-season tour, and he was over there working on a thigh issue, but no Newcastle medical staff there with him. Even when he'd come back today, he's having injury treatment on his own, but yet might be playing in the game against Atletico Madrid, even though the whole thing has just been an absolute mess from Newcastle side. Eddie said, "I want whoever the manager wants." Again, a very good point, Eddie. And most of the time, I'm okay with that. I just don't like the idea of Bradley Barcola. Never have. But if he comes in, Eddie, like your good self, whoever the manager wants, I'll get behind. Right. Christian, thank you, mate. Appreciate you. Christian Inns. Chad said, "Even with the lack of project, Isak's camp said they lied to him. If I'm a player deciding between two teams, I'm not going to the team that supposedly lied to their star." Mate, that's a really important part in all of this. If you are a club, let's look at Borussia Dortmund as a really good example. Borussia Dortmund have made their name of bringing in young talents, getting them for a reasonable fee, giving them a great environment to play football in, a great football and education, Champions League football, but not standing in their way when they take that next step. There's at least an acceptance inside Dortmund as to what they are. They are a good club, a storied club who can challenge for things, but ultimately they can't match the super clubs. The Liverpools, the Real Madrids, the Barcelonas, the Bayern Munichs. So ultimately, they know who they are. And if you're a club like Newcastle, who have a player like Isak, who was never going to retire at Newcastle, you have to be willing to see that there's a pathway out for that big move if it comes. Now, maybe Newcastle will get to a point where they're spoken about at the top table, but they're not there yet. And there has to be at least a realisation that you aren't going to be able to attract the next Isak if you're clearly shitting the bed and letting this one go. And this isn't like Liverpool are coming in trying to get him for 60 million quid. They're trying to break the British transfer record to buy a player. And Newcastle are so poor at their recruitment that they can't get their own ducks in a row. It definitely isn't a good look, Chad, from the outside. I think Gay not coming till after the Charity Shield, so he doesn't have to face his club. I wouldn't say it's anything to do with that, personally, mate, but I'm at a loss to try and figure out why we haven't brought in a centre-back yet, mate. I haven't got a good reason for you. You know, like everybody else in the chat. I'm relaxed because I think we will, but I certainly have no right to push back against anybody who's concerned as to why we haven't done it yet. It doesn't make sense to me why we haven't brought one in. Star Girl, how are we, my friend? Do say hi to your dad for me as well, by the way. I agree with you regards to Barcola, especially with Wirtz can play left wing midfield. Harvey should go to Leipzig. It's a gorgeous city. So here's where I'm thinking with the Harvey Elliott story. I don't know if Leipzig are going to be able to get to the number. Like, do Leipzig have £40 million to... I know that they've brought in money and they'll be bringing in money from Šeško and they'll be selling Xavi Simons, but I don't know, do they have £40 million to give Liverpool with a buyback option in the future? Certainly, Jurgen would be driving it and seems to be driving the interest a lot as well from what I'm reading behind the scenes. But, you know, Bundesliga is a good league to go and play football in. You know, but if I was Harvey Elliott right now and I seen Spurs interested, Newcastle interested, they probably would be further in my thought processes or more appealing to me than going over to Germany. The later a new player joins, the more time we're wasting integrating the players into our team. Always better to get new players in as early as possible. Correct. No argument on that. But sometimes these deals drag on. And look, let's give our own club a bit of credit here. Yes, we're all talking about delays now, but we did do a lot of great business early in the window. We did bring in 2 fullbacks. We did bring in a striker. We did bring in Florian Wirtz. So we have done a lot of the bedding in over the summer. But even if Isak came in tomorrow, he won't be ready to go for the start of the season anyway, because he's had no pre-season. And whether he stays at Newcastle, that won't change. The only one that I can't give you a justifiable excuse for is centre-back. I can't figure out that one myself. But sometimes, you know, these big deals kick on late into the windows. You know, if Newcastle agreed a deal tomorrow, I feel we'd have Isak sorted by the end of the week. Cal said, Craig, for anybody feeling stressed about Isak, centre-back, FSG aren't going to spend all this cash so far to end up leaving us short. We get 2-3 more done, 100%. I agree. And there's plenty of time in the window. You know, I guess it comes down to a thought process of, do we mentally want to be prepared for the first game of the season? Or are we okay to let it roll on a little bit longer, looking to the longer term? So Isak, of course, coming in would be for the next 4, 5, 6 years. But ultimately, I'd still rather get him in, even if it's later in the window. I feel like we have more than enough to start the season if we get a centre-back in. But with the Isak one, I'm okay if it drags on after the season starts, as long as we get our man. Was I watching a different Nunez than others? Good luck to Darwin, but I won't miss him as much as he misses tap-ins. So, look, I just want to be respectful of that situation, Dan, because I can't wait to see the back of him, mate. I can't. But I don't want to gloat about that because I wanted him to succeed. I drew a line under my time backing Darwin a while ago, but I wanted to be professional and respectful as much as I could while he was here. Now that today we finally moving a step closer to moving him on, I'm not going to lie, dude, I had a little fist pump earlier on in celebration because it's been, on a personal basis, one of the most frustrating parts of the summer for me because I was very adamant all summer he was going to go. I even told people if it doesn't happen in Europe, that Saudi money will be there at the end of the window and that he was going to go. And I had a lot of people saying we should keep him, we should do this, we should do that. But I knew all the way through he was never going to be here for the reason that the manager doesn't want him to be. So it's something I don't want to celebrate, but it's something that I'd be a liar if I told you I'm not relieved we're going to move on to another chapter. Ben Jacobs, Newcastle had a family barbecue function. Isak not there. Had to watch the next few days to see if he's integrated back into the squad. If he's not back in the next few days, then speaks for itself. He's not getting integrated back in, Ryan, because he doesn't want to be. Like I said, the only thing stopping Isak leaving at this point isn't Newcastle saying they won't sell him. It is Newcastle just having to get a replacement. That's the honest answer to it. Like, if they had agreed a deal for Sesko today, well, we'd be talking about Isak tomorrow. That's how clear the information I have on it is. That's all that's stopping us. John said, Craig, I really do think we should go for Gordon. If other wingers don't come to fruition, Gakpo could start, nurture and build Rio. If no Rodrigo, Gordon. I don't expect to see a revisit to Anthony Gordon this window. Even listening to just him speaking in an interview a few weeks ago, he was saying how much he's actually enjoyed having no transfer headache this summer, and he can just have a holiday and look forward to the new season. So, yeah, I think if we're going to be sticking with Newcastle to try and get a player, might as well keep going with the one we're after in Isak. This one from Chris. Is it a coincidence for Newcastle to be having a bonding day when the Isak saga is going on? Either way, for Isak to be left out, there's no way back. Well, it's not going to help the situation, Chris, because if you look at it another way, right, today could have been a way to start that process. Like you've said, you could have said, right, well, let him integrate, see how he gets on, see what the mood's like in and around the camp if he's chatting with the other players. But they didn't do that. And I think, like you said, Chris, that tells its own story about the willingness to fix this. There isn't one on either side by the looks of it. Sonder. So I think by next summer we have both Barcola and Isak because we're going to sell Gakpo next summer. 2 years left next summer and we aren't going to extend it. I disagree. I think we will extend it. I think Aaron is a big fan. I think Cody's proven himself here. So for me, I think we see an extension for Cody Gakpo, excuse me. But I just don't want Barcola personally, Sonder, mate. Just a preference for me. But if he comes in, like I said, I'll support him same as any other player. Ellie, thank you so much for your kind words, my friend. Said, hi Craig, brilliant show as always. Think we should just go and pay the 50 million for Gay. Does it really matter to us what he has left in his contract? I don't think he's worth 50 million quid, respectfully, Ellie. I think £40 million is a far fairer price, and I think £40 million is going to be the price that they accept in the end. Now, what may be interesting to keep an eye on, of course, is if Newcastle come in and make a play and make another offer for Mark Gay. And if they had an offer accepted at a higher number, I'd be very interested to see how Liverpool respond to that. I don't know this for a fact, so please don't take what I'm about to say as a fact. It is just an opinion. But it feels like, much like Ugo Ekitike, he's waiting for us. That's how I look at this situation. Ugo Ekitike had plenty of options, but when Liverpool came, you've seen how quickly it all moved because he wanted us. I get the feeling Gay is the same, and he's waiting for Liverpool to make that move. Oshin So your honest thoughts, will Isak be a red? Could too much change upset our rhythm? Well, honest thoughts, would he be a red? Yes. So like I've said, if they get a player, I'm 100%. But right now, I still think it'll happen because I still think Newcastle will get a player. So let's look at Nicholas Jackson. He doesn't have many options at this moment in time. Chelsea want to sell, and Chelsea have an agreement, don't forget, with UEFA that they basically have to balance up because of their own transfer situation in the past. So Chelsea are going to have to move him on. The options of where to move him to are becoming limited, particularly with the price they're asking for. I don't think Italian clubs could afford to pay the money Chelsea want. Nicholas Jackson, I don't think, is ready to go to Saudi. So I think he will end up at Newcastle, based off today's revelations. Sesko to United, him. And I think Newcastle will get Visa in the end as well. Similar situation to what they're going through with Isak. I think Brentford will eventually get a number in from Newcastle that they feel they can do business at. And so I think Newcastle will end the window with Visa and Jackson as a guess. If they could get Gonzalo Ramos, that would be an interesting one. But really, I don't know. Could you sell him the vision? The move from PSG to Newcastle? I'm not sure. Giovanni Leone, who he's an 18-year-old Parma centre back who's very, very highly rated around Europe. 6'3", 6'4", I think, but 18 is still really young to bring in a centre back that may be called upon to play some significant games. That would worry me. Wonder if Barcola is like Ekatike situation when Newcastle want him, so Liverpool saying we'll take him if we don't get Isak. Not sure. I don't really know what positions Newcastle need strengthened in too much, to be honest with you. I haven't really followed their window outside of the striker situation. Right, Carlos said, if Isak signs, do you see a world where Isak and Ekatike play together regularly, or do you think it'd be more often than not one or the other? Oh, it's a good question because to play together, Carlos, I see one of them going to the left, and that one would probably be Ugo Ekatike. But then on the left, you've got Cody, who is experienced, ready, and proven. So it is a very fair question and one that I don't know a definitive answer to at the minute. But I would say more often than not, one would be my guess. But at the same time, I guess the next follow up from yourself or anybody would be, isn't 70 odd million quid a lot of money to pay to have somebody like Ugo Ekatike not playing every week or most weeks? So that's where I come back to the question of the goal for this summer was to bring in a squad that means if X player is removed and Y player is put in, we aren't weakened. And to be able to get a squad that is small enough but big enough that we can rotate, that we can keep everybody getting enough games, that we can keep them at their peak fitness. And that's a balancing act for the manager, to be fair. So I'd rather have a big collection of very good players that have selection headaches for Arna than be looking at the bench going, he's not going to bring on any of these lads because he doesn't trust them. After seeing how we treated Chiesa, the Italian lad from Parma surely won't want to move. Well, so Alejandro, respectfully, we don't know what the Chiesa situation has been. So I don't know what was said to Chiesa when he signed. I haven't got a clue. The whole transfer has felt very weird from day one. But I don't think we have... I wouldn't say we've treated him poorly. I don't know why Arna doesn't pick him. I don't know if he's seen something on the training ground, if the fitness isn't there. I really don't know, mate, but I wouldn't say it's going to be prohibitive to bringing in another Italian player because ultimately, you know, if Chiesa was good enough on the training pitch and was sticking in worldies, I'm sure he'd have been given a chance. So I think failure and fault probably lies on both sides. Is Barcola a striker? I would think of Barcola as a wide player from the limited experience I've had watching him. A frustrating wide player, actually, is probably a fairer one. Ryan said, I'm very intrigued to see teams like Chelsea and Man City handle this first few weeks of the season with little to no pre-season. So glad we weren't in that terrible cup because it robs your pre-season. I wonder, will it be the latter part of the season? Maybe where this starts to tell and they pick up some more injuries and stuff. Because in my mind, I've kind of looked at it almost like a reverse pre-season. So they had a pre-season, then they gave the lads a bit of a break, and then they're coming back to fine-tune again. But ultimately, I do think it will have a negative impact on their seasons. But how much so, I guess we'll wait and see. Why everything now? There's a January window too. Because January windows are usually more expensive. Teams don't like to lose players mid-season. And managers want time to work with players and get them embedded in as quickly as possible. Saunders said, Jackson, 80 million by Ben Jacobs. No way he's worth any more than Darwin. Also, Craig Leone is a mixture of Zabarani's defensive qualities and Huijsen ball play. So, there isn't the world, dude, where I think that Nicholas Jackson's worth £80 million. No, I agree with you. It's absolute insanity. But Chelsea's warped belief is that they seen what Liverpool paid for Ugo Ekitike, and somehow in their mind, they've come to the conclusion that Nicholas Jackson's worth the same or more money. Now, I don't see it. I don't understand the logic. I don't see what Nicholas Jackson has done to demonstrate that, but he's their player and they have a right to ask whatever they want. I wouldn't want us paying it if I was Newcastle. I think it'd be fucking madness. 80 million seems nuts. How about Gay, Leone and Isak for a combined 200 million? Imagine how good Leone could be under the tutelage of Van Dijk. Gay, Leone and Isak. I mean, happy days. Sign me up for that one, mate. That would be... If you said to me, Craig, we're doing that and that's the end of the window, I'd be right on board with it. That would allay a lot of my fears, definitely. Harry, to provide an outside view on your business. 1, the more money involved, the longer a deal is likely to take. 2, Palace or especially Brentford will want to line up a replacement before they sell. So on the Palace part of this for Gay, they've had more than enough time to line up a replacement and they've known what was happening. They tried to get Diamonde that they just couldn't get a number. So I think Crystal Palace are already being in the process of knowing that they're going to lose Mark Gay. They won't want to lose him for free because, again, not to be disrespectful about the size of Palace, but they can't afford to turn down 40 million quid. Like, we could argue if it was our team or maybe it was United's team or Arsenal's team or Chelsea's team, is keeping the player for the extra year to qualify, let's say, for Champions League, is that a worthwhile risk? But Palace aren't going to have a season where they're going to get Champions League football, so you can't make an argument that holding them and letting them go for free could add value. Maybe Europe at a push, but I still don't see the number stacking up. Daffod, thank you, bro. Appreciate you. Shane, how are we, bro? Shane's a United fan. Oh, a very fair United fan, I should say. I would say I feel a bit for Newcastle, but I don't. On Baleba, I doubt it'll happen unless we sell Bruno, which I'd love to happen, but don't think it will. So I agree on that, mate. If you sold Bruno, and I think Al Nasser wanted him, and he turned them down, if I'm not mistaken, then yeah, I'd say you might have the money to sign Baleba, especially because he would be on a lower wage, I would imagine, as well. But I just don't see you guys having the money to do it at this moment. My days. I just noticed this. Ryan gifted 50 memberships. Wow. Nearly slipped that one by me, dude. Absolute legend of a man. Thank you. Really, really gentleman, mate. Thank you so much. That's so kind of you. And again, to everyone that's getting a membership, enjoy, and please do give our friend S4T a little love. Right, I wanted to just, while we're speaking about memberships, the Anfield Agenda podcast went up today. If you haven't had a chance to have a look at it, please do. It's also up on Spotify. You can watch it as a video podcast on there as well. It's going to be every week from here on out. Myself, Steve Bland and Chris Stonage will be together every week to discuss the very latest stuff around Liverpool Football Club. We are going to adhere to always have it out on a Tuesday for you, and then for the members it'll be out 12 hours before. If you're a YouTube member, you'll get it before anybody else, and then afterwards it'll be available for everybody. But if you haven't watched it, please do give it a look and let me know your thoughts on it. Marcus, when do you expect movement for Newcastle to get Jackson? Has been lots of talk about Newcastle's next target is Jackson. Do Newcastle need 2 centre forwards to sell? The second part's a good question, Marcus. No, I wouldn't say 2 to sell. Ideally, yes, they want 2. But for me, if they got into Johan Visa, I don't think they'd sell. But if they were to get what I would class as top tier, and by that I mean money, I think they'd sell if they got Jackson. They'd still want another one, and I'm sure they still work for one, but I feel if they got in Nicholas Jackson, that would be enough for us to see movement in Isak, yeah. And it would also then free up more money for them. Roger, probability of signing Rodrigo, Isak, Barcola, Gay. Rodrigo, I would say at this point, 30%. Isak, it's going to happen. I don't see how he isn't a Liverpool player by the end of the window. I can't see a way it doesn't happen. Unless, of course, Newcastle continue to shit the bed. Barcola, it doesn't feel right to me. Something about that link just does not feel right, and I can't put my finger on it. It should have happened by now, let's be honest. If we're being blunt about this, it should have happened by now. But even if it's Leone, I still don't understand what we're doing. Like, whoever the centre-back target is, whether it's a young centre-back or whether it's Mark Gay, there's no reason to be sitting around twiddling our thumbs. Like, go get it done. Because we sold one. So, you sold one, go get it done. Because Eric Ten Hag has had pre-season to work with Jarell Kwanzaa, but Arna hasn't had a centre-back to work with in pre-season, so go get the man a centre-back. John Bacon, welcome to Anfield Agenda FC, my man. Appreciate you joining. Welcome in. Gary, selling Darwin convinced me more that they will get Isak. I'd rather more news on defenders, though. Oh, mate, totally get where you're coming from. So, like you, Gary, and let me ask the chat that, actually. You know, it's a really good point you've made, Gary, so let me just ask the chat, bro. One sec. Do you think us selling Darwin means we are confident on Isak? Right. Do you think us agreeing to sell Darwin means we're confident on signing Isak? Because, like Gary said, I can't see a world where we agree to sell Diaz, Chiesa, Darwin, and have lost Diogo without having that confidence behind the scenes, mate. So, for me, it surely has to be something as good as done, you know, because these people aren't stupid. They're not going to do all the great work at the start of the window only to mess it up at the end. So, I 100% agree with what you said, mate. And also, I agree on the defenders as well. Andrew said, still got a feeling we will panic buy if Newcastle were looking to sell Isak. I'm kind of worried. Look, think of it this way, though. If Newcastle get to the point where we don't have Isak, then they haven't got a forward, and they have big problems. Because then they have an unfit player who won't be ready to start the season, an unhappy player who won't want to give 100%, and toxicity in the fan base and in the dressing room. Now, of course, they'll all pretend that they've sat around a campfire, sang Kumbaya, and they're all mates again. But deep down, that resentment's going to be there, and it'll fester. And their season will fall apart. Because if Isak feels any type of a strain, the fuck is he going to go out there and try to run through a brick wall when he knows he's moving out? So, All of it just feels very, 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 very unlikely that they can fix it. Craig Adams said, congratulations on 340k onto 400 WFM. Thank you, bro. But we only got there because of the amazing support from you guys. Matthew, so do you think Robertson will be used for cover at centre-back? I don't mean this to sound disrespectful to Robbo, who I love, but I bloody well hope not. I'm not comfortable seeing him playing left-sided centre-back. I just amn't. Same way I'm not really comfortable with Endo doing it either, because it feels like a stick and plaster situation where we shouldn't have to be looking for stick and plasters. We should have 4 quality centre-backs ready to go, and a young centre-back on top of that. Eddie, so the reason we haven't sold Robbo is because he will cover centre-back and Endo will. I will lose my shit if we go into the season and their options, Eddie, because let's be honest, it's not good enough. It isn't. It would undo so much of the other good work. Like, what would be the point in bringing in Wirtz, in getting 2 new shiny fullbacks in, if we're still having to pigeonhole somebody in at centre-back who doesn't fit the model of the way we want to play that role? Robbo, Endo, neither of them are aerially good enough. Neither of them are fast enough. Neither of them are good enough to play the high defensive line. It will just be like undermining our own work. So if it happens, mate, as much as I never thought after this window I'd be complaining, I'll be complaining because it'll be a piss take if we go into the season and they're the options at centre-back. Davis has just posted that Newcastle pricing Isak at 150 million. They're rigidly sticking to that price. So, respectfully, Newcastle have said a lot in this window about a lot of things, and let's wait and see. I've said all the way through I don't think he's worth 150 million quid, but I don't make the decision on what the cut-off point is for the fee. So let's wait and see how it happens. But if Newcastle is saying 150 million and they're rigidly sticking to that, well, if I'm Liverpool tomorrow morning, I'm putting 130 million on the table and saying, there you go. Thoughts? And see what they say. Maybe they don't see value in a centre-back marker right now. I find that hard to believe when you've an England international available for about 40 million with 1 year to go who's 24 and homegrown. If there's no value in that, I don't know what value there will be in the centre-back market. Feels like a no-brainer because he was a £70 million player 6 months ago when Newcastle tried to sign him, but now he's into the last year of his deal and you could probably get him for 40 if you hold your nerve. So I can't look at the centre-back market and feel it's because there isn't good options. If that was the case and they didn't feel there was value there, they shouldn't have sold Kwanzaa, should they? Darwin was going regardless of us getting Isak, in my opinion. He was, but you still have to think of it from a numbers game. Like I've told everybody all summer Darwin was going. Look, I don't want to pat myself on the back because I don't like doing it, but I feel like I've been pretty bulletproof this summer on transfers, on everything I said was going to happen, because what I heard was pretty clear. And sometimes you hear stuff and you're not sure whether you believe it or not. But when you hear enough of the same thing from enough credible people, eventually you just think, well, this is pretty straightforward. So I promised people the 3 signings at the start of the window. I talked about a 4th signing that the club media team were told to prepare for, but I didn't know who it was. Told you that we would see Elliott probably sold. I told you Darwin was definitely getting sold. I told you Diaz, for all the talk of Liverpool not wanting to sell him, would be sold. And it's all happened. So, not surprising to me, but there still seems to be some Liverpool fans, for whatever reason, had it in their head that Darwin might not be leaving this summer. And, you know, all I can do is continue to be as transparent and as clear and as honest as I can be. Whether people want to hear it, believe it, or don't like what I'm saying, you know, I can't really change that one. John said, why has Gay not been signed yet? Oh, dude, don't know. Even if it's just like trying to get the price down, like start the process, you know? Throw a bid in. If Palace want 50 and we're at 35, well, Go in at 35 and start the process. See what happens. So yeah, mate, I agree, John. I can't figure it out, mate. I can't. It just seems so unnecessarily I don't even know what the word I'm looking for here is. We're leaving ourselves work to do when we have time to do it. Do you think we'll get the Isak signing done? Or when do you think, sorry, Alfie said we'll get the Isak signing done? I would be surprised if it's done before we play Bournemouth, but I feel like I can give you a clearer answer when we know where Newcastle are at with a signing. Like if tomorrow morning we woke up and Newcastle have agreed to deal with Chelsea for Nicholas Jackson, I would say there's a chance by the end of the week. But that would also depend on how firm Liverpool are in their valuation versus the 150 million, let's say, that Newcastle want. Because if you're trying to save 20 million quid and you're Liverpool, do you let it go to the wire? Do you call Newcastle's bluff on the 31st of August? I can't answer that because I don't know what Liverpool's thought process is in the negotiation. But it will be, either way, a record British fee. Ryan said, I reckon 40 million would have been the price, but my guess is Crystal Palace have thought to themselves that he's homegrown and only 24, so that warrants the extra 10. It does if you've got a willing buyer and a player who's willing to go to that club. So let's just throw a hypothetical out there. If Newcastle came in tomorrow and said to Crystal Palace, there's £50 million, then it will come down to, well, does Mark Gay want to go to Newcastle? And if the answer to that is yes, then Crystal Palace will get their 50 million quid. But if Mark Gay says, no, I'm waiting for Liverpool, and makes it really clear, and this is a hypothetical because I don't know this to be the case, but if he said to Palace, I'm only moving to Liverpool, or I'm happy to let my contract run down and play and give 100% here for the year, then they have a big problem. Because then they know the only avenue for him to leave and them to get a fee is Liverpool. And that's when you have to start negotiating or lose the player for free. So a lot will come down to, much like with Isak, what's being communicated from Mark Gay's camp. Must admit, I'm worried Ebu's not signed yet, getting close to going for free. So I'm taking some comfort, Robert, from the fact that we've not seen many stories lately linking him with Madrid. And there's been some positive chatter, although nothing confirmed, that the conversations are going okay between Liverpool and Ebu, and that both sides are hopeful of an extension. But again, mate, fair point you've raised. It hasn't happened yet, and, you know, it's nervy. I get it. And I don't disagree. Right. £80 million for Jackson is a joke. I know. I remember when I first heard that fee earlier on in the window, I nearly fell off the sofa laughing. But I'll be really honest with you, I thought United would end up buying them and spending the money. I think they've ended up getting a far better player with Sesko. Itachi said, so Isak's still on the table, right? Yes. Otherwise, we cannot afford 3 forwards to leave. Isak and Gay, and I'd be happy. Don't need Barcola. Give Rio time to play. I pray every day for Isak. So let's check the poll where we asked, do you think selling Darwin means we're confident on Isak? So if you haven't voted yet, we have about 10 minutes left on the stream. Do vote away on it. But the question we're asking is, do you think that the fact that we're willing to sell Darwin Nunez to Al Hilal means that we're confident on Isak? Because again, I would find it very difficult to believe we aren't if we're letting forwards walk out the door. Shane, the 1958 group statement or protest happening before Arsenal game is brilliant. As I said last night, Ratcliffe is a liar and just another Glazer. Obviously, you're far closer to this, Shane, than I would be as a United fan there. But for me, mate, as an outsider looking at this, and granted, not having a huge fondness for Manchester United, it feels like your club's better than that. Your fans are better than that. The institution of Manchester United is better than that. For all our differences as fans and our competitiveness, there's a respect for the way to do things, for the way our clubs act, for the way that they are perceived in the world. And the stacking of those staff members, much like the furloughing of staff on our side, although to a far lesser extent, doesn't feel very socially conscious. So I'm disgusted as a football person to see United do that. And I would be equally as disgusted as a football person to see Liverpool do it, because it's not what our clubs are about. Our clubs are not just football clubs. In that part of the UK, they're social institutions that, you know, have always strived to do the best for the working class people in and around them, and be a net contributor to that community. And I just feel it's scummy what's going on there. And it's not my place to say it, but you're saying it. And it feels beneath Manchester United, if I'm being really, really honest, mate. The Darwin experiment was a roller coaster. Definitely was. And no denying there were some high points on that roller coaster. That Newcastle game will always be the one that comes to my mind. Because we were down to 10. We were 1-0 down, and he single-handedly won the game with the best cameo we're probably going to see in his career. He came on, just absolutely just rinsed that Newcastle defence, and we won the game. So, yeah, there was highs and lows, but like I said at the start of the stream, you never don't want a player to work out when they come to the club, but sometimes you just have to draw a line in the sand and think, we've tried 2 managers, 3 years, just hasn't worked. If we sign a left winger, would this impact Rio's progress? 100% yes, in my opinion. I don't see how it couldn't. You could bring in a player like Rodrigo, who is multifaceted and could play anywhere across the front three, and you could still keep the argument as to how you give Rio the opportunity. But if you're bringing in a bona fide left winger to replace Diaz, yeah, I think that's somewhat blocking the pathway. Just my opinion on it, though. Right. I'm a bit late to the party. Power washing the driveway in the back garden. Good man. You're a better man than me. Here we go for Darwin. Good luck, fella. Yeah, the here we go is definitely there. As I mentioned earlier on. I will read it out to you as Romano wrote it. Darwin Nunez Al Halal, here we go. Verbal agreement has been completed between all parties. €53 million plus add-ons to Liverpool as revealed today. 3-year deal for Darwin. Nunez has said yes, Inzaghi only wanted him. Medical next. What's this one? Again, this from Paul Joyce. I want to read this out once again in case people didn't hear it earlier. Mark Gay has entered the final year of his contract at Crystal Palace, and Liverpool may follow up their interest depending on the price. I think my reading of this from Paul Joyce today is that Liverpool are basically putting it out there they want him, but they're not going to play ball at 50 million quid. He goes on to say, there is strong interest in Parma's 18-year-old centre-back Giovanni Leone, who's also wanted by Inter Milan. Isak, of course, has been the saga of the summer, and the next instalment of that saga cannot be far away. So also feels like he's leading into the fact that there will be another play for Isak. Like, I came on and laughed my ass off when I heard Ian Doyle and those other journalists try to tell the world that Liverpool were not going to make another bid for Isak. I don't know who they were trying to kid, but they made themselves look like idiots. And yeah, they were briefed by the club, but you make a conscious choice whether you want to play the game and be in the club's good book or be honest. And I don't know how you build a readership, a viewership, or a listenership lying. I don't know it. And I often say this, and I've said it to journalists when I've spoke to them. Do you not care about your reputation? Because, yeah, you can say, well, the club are briefing this, we have to take it in good faith. But we all know it's horseshit. And then they wonder why people call them out. and they wonder why people are watching fan content, because they treat football fans like idiots and think we're all going to lap it up and that we won't push back and we can't see through clear bullshit and PR. I don't get it. Like, your reputation should be more important than your relationship with the club, unless the only way you have an existence in this whole industry is because of your relationship with the club, in which case I don't think you're trustworthy. That's my take on it. Say what you want about me, Goldbridge, or anybody else. We're not withholding to anyone. We can say what we feel. And that, to me, is the biggest inspiration outside of the audience for this channel. Because nobody tells me what to say. Nobody tells me what I can't say. You know, I live and die by my own reputation and what I say. And that means so much to me. Because if I shit the bed, I shit the bed. It's on me. But I'm not going to read out something that I know to be horseshit just because somebody tells me to and I want to keep that relationship. Nah, that's just silly. That's my take. Look, might be simplistic, but that's why I love what I do. I don't have to be a yes man for anybody. Where am I? Sorry, I know I missed a couple. This one. Chris. So do you think Murillo of Forest would be a decent centre-back option, Premier League proven, and I think a lot of the clean sheets were down to him? So, yes, he's a good player. My feeling is, though, Chris, that we wouldn't want to spend that much money, because I would imagine you're looking at probably 70 or 80 million. I think, again, open to being corrected, but I have a memory that he signed a new contract at Forest. So, again, that would mean they could look to get their full value. And looking at the way Marinakis responded to the situation with, what's-his-face, Gibbs White, they want to build something. So I think it would be a really, really, really tough deal to pull off as well. That and the fact I just don't see us spending that much. Blue Blur. So, Craig, I love that you speak your mind and are passionate for the badge. Don't change. So, look, it's this simple with me. This channel lives and dies by whether you believe what I say. And whether you think when you come on here every night that what you're hearing might not be right. You don't have to agree with what I'm saying, but you believe that I believe what I'm saying. That, to me, that's the most important thing. Because without this, what is it? Without me and you, wherever you are watching, my aim is to be truthful, trustworthy and honest with you and get that back from you. If that bond is broken, then what the fuck's the point? I might as well just be another yes person. So there's pros and cons to what I do. The cons are I don't get any of the opportunities. I don't get the interviews. I don't get the visits to Melwood or to the AXA. I don't get invited to anything. I am persona non grata from a Liverpool Football Club perspective. But the good side is our numbers, nobody can deny. The viewership, nobody can deny. And there has to be a reason for that. And I don't know what the reason is because I'm a fucking idiot. But it has to be that people see something here that they don't feel they're getting elsewhere. And if that's as simple as a bit of honesty or hard truth, it's my absolute pleasure to do it. But it is always going to be my honest opinion because I don't want to lie to any of you. You're the bread and butter for our channel. You are our community. You are our family. And nobody's going to manipulate me to lie to you. This one from Eddie. And I know that comes down to a really simplistic thing, but it means so much to me to be in your homes every night. You know, it means so much to me that you let me in, you listen to me, and we're part of your daily routine. You know, and I will always strive to do you right, basically, without trying to get too deep on it. Yeah, if I feel I've let you down, that weighs heavier on me than anything else. I can't see Newcastle signing 2 players that will go away for AFCON. God, I haven't even given that any thought, Eddie, to be honest with you, my man. It's a good point. It's a good point, dude. Yeah, I haven't given it much thought, but, you know, I guess on the other side of it, Eddie, would you would you go without a player for 6 weeks or not sign one at all? So, from that, yeah. But I don't know if you guys agree with what I said there, by the way, about it. But it's my favourite thing about what we do, is I don't have to worry about an email coming in to say, "Oh, we don't like that you were saying this," or "we don't like that you push back on this." I don't care as long as you're happy. I'm happy. Ryan said, to be fair, Nunez saved us against Brentford as well, which was looking to be a 0-0 draw. But you must stop speaking about Darwin's good games against Newcastle. They're annoyed with us enough. Yeah, I know. It's also weird that we haven't seen any interest from Newcastle and Darwin. I wondered, would we ever get to that point, where maybe they're interested. But I also wonder, do Liverpool not want him to stay in the Prem just in case? Like, can you imagine if Newcastle signed Darwin and they unlocked him and he became what we thought he might become in the league against us? That would be a tough one to take as well. So I often wonder, do Liverpool prefer to move these players away and out of the league? And in Darwin's case, to a different confederation altogether. Shane said, it's disgraceful. The Glazers probably already had the soul of the club. Excuse me, I'm going to read that again. It's disgraceful. The Glazers probably already had, but the soul of the club has been completely taken out by Sir Jim. The cost cutting, sackings, charity cuts, and they're knocking Old Trafford down. And all of that, mate, from somebody who professes to be a fan. That's the real thing for this. Because I remember there was Sheikh Jassim and there was all the money that was on offer. But it was a big thing to United fans. And understandably, that it was one of your own that was looking to buy the club. A fan. So for it to have gone this way, I don't for 1 second not sympathise with the plight you find yourself in. Football-wise, of course, I snigger about it, but on a human level, I absolutely stand with you and where you're feeling. Right, ladies and gents, I'm going to have to wind this down and get the late night video out. We did ask, do you think us selling Darwin means we're confident on Isak? 79% of the people that voted said yes on that one. Thank you. Again, I want to say sorry for the very late start of the stream, obviously with the problem from earlier on. We were messing around with some camera settings and stuff earlier to try and make the camera a little bit sharper, and something obviously wasn't agreeing with OBS, so hence the stream crashed. So apologies on that one. Morning, Kaz. Appreciate you. But yeah, I want to say thank you to you all again. Really do appreciate you giving up your time to come and have a chat with me. I will see you tomorrow, same time, same place. Don't forget to check out the Anfield Agenda podcast as well. But most importantly, I love you all to bits. Thank you so much for changing my life for the better, for making me a better person, and for giving me the chance to do what I do every day. So we will talk to you soon. Take care.